Welcome into the Aggie Up podcast. I'm Isaac Draxler, and so tonight we will be talking about Utah State football. Obviously, Colorado State's coming up on Saturday, and so we're gonna see, or we're gonna talk about a lot about if the Aggies can take advantage of some of the opportunities that they've had so far this year. They've lost to Boise State and Air Force, and really USC, and in every game they've had opportunities, and they just haven't been able to take advantage of those. Let me start out with a little disclaimer. This podcast does not express the views or opinions of anyone at Utah State, including coaches or anything like that. We're not affiliated with Utah State. I just have to get that disclaimer out of the way. And tonight, we're happy to have Ryan Krous with us. He covers Colorado State. Inside the Rams.com, I believe, is the website. And Seth's on the phone as well. How's it going, Ryan? Seth?
Doing great. How you guys doing?
We're doing good. We're doing good. A couple tough games so far this year. Obviously, Utah State took a loss against Boise State on the horrible blue Smurf turf, and I went up to that game. That was kind of a tough loss, especially when Utah State holds Boise State to 21 points, and they just can't muster enough offense. They can't muster some points, and I know Colorado State coming off a loss in the border war with Wyoming. That had to be a tough loss. So tell us kind of how the team, the environment, the fans, everything. How are things looking around there in Fort Collins?
Yeah. Well, coming off really a really bad loss to Wyoming. Wyoming's arguably CSU's biggest rival. You had the border war. With Wyoming really being in rebuilding mode. Yeah, they have Brian Hill. They have a few weapons to work with, but I consider them not a great football team. And with CSU being at home, big rivalry game. It was really a game that most people expected CSU to win rather easily. And the fact that they lost by 21 at home, this week fans are, pretty upset to say the least. I think the fan base is kind of searching for answers, and I think a lot of fan bases, when things go sour, they're hoping for coaching changes or, things of that nature. And, you still have some fans that are doing that. But, yeah, no, it really is a bad loss. Some people are calling for changes with, whether it's coordinators, assistants, or what have you. Um, bottom line is, it was a very bad loss. Colorado State opened the season with a 44-7 loss to Colorado. So just getting dismantled by their two biggest rivals is not a good thing. So right now they sit at 2-3, still a lot of talent, a lot of football to be played, but right now things are not looking great from a fan's point of view.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And is it more of a defensive issue right now that kind of people are disappointed in the way the defense has played so far, or?
Yeah, I would definitely say defense for sure. I think it's kind of an everything issue. We can get into some more details on the quarterback situation and all that.
Right.
They're playing a true freshman quarterback, and really, the irony is he's really the strongest performer so far. He threw a pick six last week, but aside from that, he's played quite well. He still threw for 370 yards last week. Colin Hill, former three-star from South Carolina, but really the defense is the major issue. A very inexperienced secondary, not much depth back there. The front line, they run a 3-4, but they're not getting pressure on the quarterback. Leading up to last week, and even we saw it some last week, was very poor tackling. So, of course, you have the fans and followers of the program that are wondering, should there be a new defensive coordinator? But from my vantage point, it's hard to, regardless of who's coaching, there's definitely some personnel that's lacking. It's just an interesting dynamic that there are many pieces in place, and I feel like there's a lot of talent, yet, we're not really seeing the production from that.
So one of my I guess pet peeves or one of the things that I kind of harp on is I want to see a program built for the long term. So is it fair to say that kind of McElwain didn't have that long term approach? I mean, it seemed like he had some junior college guys, some transfers that really helped that team. Was it just not built for the long term, and now they're kind of building it for the long term, or how do you characterize that?
Well, I would agree with your statement. I don't think, however, that McElwain assumed he'd be jumping ship anytime soon. I think
Sure.
really it was an ideal scenario where in his fourth year the team goes 10-3. Florida had a job opening, and their AD just happened to fall in love with McElwain, and the perfect scenario, you know, came upon him, and so he jumped ship. And I think during his tenure, I don't think he really expected to move anytime soon. I think it's, certainly fair to say that CSU is, a stepping stone school, or at least McElwain has kind of, created that, outlook, some people might say. And so when Bobo came aboard, some felt, well, he's another SEC guy. He's just looking to, you know, be here a few years and jump ship, go back to the SEC. So to answer your question, I don't think McElwain had a short-term vision. I think Bobo is the same way. I think he understands, certainly after last year, he understands that it's going to take time to win in the Mountain West. I think, he may have taken some things for granted when he came on board, just expectations of having returning talent under McElwain, as well as, his recruiting ties and all that to the South. The freshman recruiting class that just came in for CSU, in my opinion, is one of the best in recent memory as far as, talent on paper goes. However, the year McElwain left, that recruiting class, I think, had 14 kids. So Bobo didn't have much to work with in his first year, not having a very big recruiting class. But that being said, the cupboard was not bare. Certainly some talent was there. I think specifically on the defensive line, that's always been the biggest issue for CSU. Comparing that to Utah State, it always seems Utah State's got the big guys up front that, can stymie offenses, especially running games, and, guys like David Moala. And you look at CSU, they have not had guys like that. So that's been the biggest issue, in my opinion. And then you have guys like Rashard Higgins, Capri Bibbs, leaving early for the NFL draft. So, that doesn't help with a school like CSU. But on the whole, it's just kind of like I said, a weird dynamic. There is talent there at certain spots, yet they are inexperienced. Of course, you have the true freshman quarterback, some first-year starters on both sides of the ball. But the CSU offensive line was expected to be one of the best in the conference, and they have not dominated a single game. They got dominated by Wyoming up front, which in my opinion says quite a bit. I'm not super impressed with Wyoming's defensive front, but that's just kind of a long-winded answer to trying to explain, the current state of the program.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a pretty broad question, and coaches have to win now, and if they don't win now, they could lose their job. So I definitely understand that. I'll let Seth get in a word in edgewise. One more after this question. I just had one more question for you. It was the quarterback last year, Nick Stevens, right? And so he was
Yes,
returning.
that's correct.
How did that quarterback battle kind of go down? Has it been a decision that they kind of just figured out in fall camp and stuck with it, or?
It's been a very interesting and dramatic process. So quick recap, Nick Stevens was a first-year starter last year as a redshirt sophomore. Came in, had his ups and downs, really struggled at times. Definitely struggled against Utah State, I would say. But he still earned second-team All-Mountain West honors based on his stats. And again, it was his first year starting. So coming into this year, most thought there's a chance he would start again. However, Mike Bobo brought in Georgia transfer Fatone Bauta, who had one start against Florida last year, and it was a disaster. Through 0 touchdowns, 4 picks. Really wasn't good. He was a career backup at Georgia, but Bobo brought him into CSU. So those two battled it out all spring and fall. Bobo, hounded that it was a three-quarterback competition between Stevens, who was last year's starter, Bauta, the Georgia transfer, and then Colin Hill, the three-star true freshman. And really in fall camp, kind of came down to Bauta and Stevens won, so he was the incumbent. He opened the season against Colorado at Sports Authority Field in Denver, and it was an unmitigated disaster. He was 6 of 20 passing for 32 yards with no touchdowns and an interception, or excuse me, I think it was 2 interceptions. And Bauta came in relief in the third quarter, did some read option, tried to throw a little bit. He was not good throwing the ball, but he was more of a running threat, so at least he picked up some yards running. Bauta started the following week against Northern Colorado. I believe I think that's right. And or it wasn't Northern Colorado. I believe it was UTSA, and he did not do well at all either. I think he threw for 82 yards or something of that nature. Very, very low completion percentage. Had fans at Hughes Stadium booing. So ultimately, Bobo made a decision that some questioned, yet many appreciated, was, both quarterbacks just legitimately could not throw the football. So he pulled the red shirt off Colin Hill, It was my understanding the staff wanted to keep that red shirt, but obviously the team couldn't even move the ball with the other two guys. So they bring in Colin Hill, and he was an immediate success in his first start against UNC. In the first half, he threw for 4 touchdowns, rushed for another 51-yard score. And even against, Minnesota and last week against Wyoming, he's shown a lot of poise. He's big. He can make every throw. He's got all the intangibles as well. So he's, without question, the guy going forward. Coach is sticking with the true freshman. So, again, that's another long-winded answer, but just really, lots of moving pieces, I guess, lots of drama to Bobo trying to find some answers to get this team to start winning some football games.
Yeah, like I said, obviously you gotta do what you gotta do to win. It sounds like they're kind of on the third option then, and kind of might as well play the young guy, right, to build for the future and go from there. Seth, do you have
Yeah,
anything that?
absolutely.
So my other question was how much of a rivalry is this according to Colorado State fans and um, the Utah State Colorado State games, if nothing else, have been close the last few years, right? So is it kind of turning into a rivalry or?
That's an interesting question. I honestly haven't given it that much thought
Sure.
because they've got their 3 rivals. They've got Colorado, they have Wyoming, and then Air Force. So that's kind of like the big 3 that most fans are, I guess, centered on as far as rivals. And you look at Utah State, I think it could definitely be, a rivalry. Pending CSU is still in the Mountain West, of course. There's still some talk they could jump to the Big 12, even with how poorly they're doing on the football field. You look at the location, it makes sense. Kind of 2 similar teams. But really, I know CSU won in Fort Collins 2 years ago, that really close game, the game-winning field goal. But other than that, really, the last several years, Utah State's really had CSU's number for sure. So I potentially, like I said, provided CSU stays in the conference, it absolutely could turn into something. But in my opinion, for a series like this to turn into a rivalry, you got to have both teams winning. And as far as my memory can kind of capture right now, I just Utah State's kind of had CSU's number at this point.
Yeah, and for those that don't remember, I mean that game 2 years ago, I went to that game as well, and pretty much everything went wrong for Utah State. Everything went right for Colorado State. Rashard Higgins caught that pass with not much time left, and then obviously